Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Chasing Neat. I'm Michael, this is Don, and tonight we're going to go over in a little bit more detail some of the things that we touched on our last video, which was from BourbonCon 2025. That was the highlight reel where we kind of went over all the things that we saw and tasted and who we spoke with. And one of those segments was with True Story.
Yes. True story.
True
right?
story.
True story. Yeah. So this is a brand that just got released or announced, I think, October this past year. And for those of you who know Wes Henderson from Angel's Envy, Wes Henderson. This is Wes Henderson's new venture.
Yep.
He and his sons, maybe not all of them, but slowly but surely, all of them are going to. They created a new brand. Apparently, retirement didn't really suit Wes very well.
Nope, he could not sit around, and he was the first one to say he was not one that could just rest on his laurels and play golf, and he had to be busy.
Yeah. So,
or his wife kicked him out of the house. One of the two.
Yeah, she probably is driving him crazy. I'm gonna guess maybe, but we had an opportunity to have, I don't want to call it a breakout session. When you go to conferences, that's what those are called. But kind of a little offshoot session with listening to Wes talk about the new brand and answer a couple questions from all of us, kind of maybe regarding how he got started and how he became associated with Angel's Envy, and his dad brought him along for Angel's Envy, and now it looks like Wes is going to be doing the same with his sons, making a family legacy there as well. So we just wanted to kind of pour these really quick and maybe talk a little bit about the bottles themselves, and then at the end of this video, Mike's going to tack on some.
I will show you after we do our tasting and little review. We'll show you either in its entirety or in a cut version, mostly probably a cut version of the Wes's discussion with us all, what he had to say, and then that'll be that video, and then we'll do another one on
whatever's next.
What's ever next? We got a couple over there: Dark Arts, the W.H. McBrayer, Truth or Dest. No, Never Say Die.
Never Say Die.
Actually, two on the Dark Arts.
Yeah.
And
a couple.
There was another one I'm forgetting, but
Paul Sutton. Yeah, some
Can't
of those.
Can't forget them.
Yep.
They were the kind of the big sponsor of the BourbonCon. So
yep.
All right.
But back to True Story, and I hope you guys will enjoy, like I said, the content at the end. It should be fun to hear some things that we didn't know, what we learned about Wes.
It was just fun listening to Wes. He's a good
and
speaker.
What he's doing now, and how that relates to death.
Death?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You don't remember this?
No.
Okay, well, I guess you need to.
Oh, yes, you have to watch the entire video to the end where death peeks out its reary head. Something like that.
Anyway, why we should drink.
All right, so we're going to start with the bourbon. The bourbon comes in at about $60. What was the proof?
90 proof.
90 proof.
90 proof on the bourbon, and then this one is this bourbon is finished. Well, they're both finished. This one 90 proof bourbon, and this one over here is 100 proof rye. So this one is finished in Amburana.
Yep.
Amburana, and what did I also tell you? The different sherries. Oloroso sherry.
Oloroso.
And what did I say? Pedro.
Pedro, that funny name I can't pronounce.
Jimenez.
Yep.
And on the rye whiskey, this one actually is finished in a white Muscatel barrel. So
this is made up of Indiana rye, and this is made up of
Kentucky and Indiana.
Bourbons.
Okay, well, you know what? Let's just get on with it. Let's nose the bourbon here.
Kind of a classic bourbon nose.
Yep.
Although a little sweeter. I guess that's probably the sherry. And the Oloroso.
Yeah, it's not overly.
Leather.
Yeah, I smell the leather on that. I definitely smell sweetness in there. It's not proofy at all at 90 proof. I didn't really expect it to be super proofy in the nose even.
Yeah.
It's pleasant. I suspect it's going to be kind of, my memory is I liked the rye one better, which is kind of interesting, but this one I think is going to be an easy drinker.
All right.
Yeah, what nose are you picking up? I'm not even sure.
A little bit of orange for me.
Yeah, a little bit. All right, well, let's just sip it. Oh, that's really nice. Again, for the first sip of the 90 proof, it's a little hot, but
Yeah.
after this, it acclimates a little bit. It won't be.
Yeah, we didn't do our warm up
It'll
like we normally do on our 2-ounce Tuesdays. This is kind of a 2-ounce.
It's okay. I think sometimes I don't want to always warm up to really taste that flavor that's pure instead of not already.
That first impact.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, but we just pour a little more, right? I mean, and then the first sip on that, it's not bad for, like I said, for the first sip of the night. I definitely tasted a real strong hint of orange, though, on that first sip.
Yeah. Okay, second sip.
Mm-hmm. It's I got a little drying on that one in the back. Definitely some leather. I feel like you talk about squeaky teeth. I don't know I have squeaky teeth, but I feel like it's just a little. I just feel like a squeaky something. I don't know.
Yeah, kind of like the cheese curds effect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But definitely that second sip was a little bit more rich, if I can use that word.
Yeah, you can use it.
Still kind of finishing in my throat. Not really a Kentucky hug at this point, but it's in here in my throat.
It's got a pretty decent nose, though. I mean, for what did you say, that $60, right? So
yeah.
I think it's decent.
It's pleasant. It's good tasting, sweet. My kind of a bourbon. It's not crazy profile. It's not really crazy like up and down like you talk about all the time. It's a good conversation. It's a nice arc.
Sipping bourbon.
Yeah.
So I think I like that.
Again, for sitting down in the chair and at the table and just telling true stories.
Or you can lie.
Or a few lies.
Okay. We don't care. That's pretty good. So I'm going to say some and go back to that. But let's go ahead and...
Well, before we go on to that one.
Okay.
So, and you'll see this in the video, but so Wes came from starting the Angel's Envy. And then he sold that to Bacardi for an undisclosed amount, I believe.
Probably a gajillion dollars.
And then he sat around, went to Florida, came back, did some things, and then decided to buy the Kentucky Castle, which I think was built like 1976, I think. And for a gentleman wanted to build a castle for his wife, and so they built it and then lived in it for a couple of years, and they got divorced. So much for that castle. But Wes is...
It's no Taj Mahal, I'm just saying, but it's a pretty impressive castle. I mean, it's cute. It's cute. We've driven by. We've never been to it yet, but I think it's really cool. I think originally their plan was to actually build a distillery inside that space or whatever. And I think as they were talking and then mulling it around, they were like, let's just keep the castle, make it an event space, and then just so happened that the acreage
somewhat adjacent
next to it,
close to it,
became available, and they grabbed that.
Yeah.
So
I think the new distillery is going to be on like 150 acres ish.
Yeah, a lot of acres for sure.
So they're putting in $92.5 million into that distillery.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
And the whole thing is going to be the Saga Group.
Saga Spirits.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting when they get that done and definitely start making their own.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think I read too that they said, or if I remember, maybe Wes told us, I don't remember, but somewhere it's known that they expect the distillery to be ready by the third quarter of this year. That kind of blows me away.
Well, you got $92 million, you can get it built.
Yeah, get people on
it. And if you can get it built, then you can start putting barrels away. So.
And if you're Wes Henderson,
Yeah. It's interesting
happen.
that how quick you can get a still made. I think that's got to be the somewhat the deciding factor. But maybe you throw enough money to Vendome, they'll make it as fast as you need it.
We should have asked them that question. I don't think
next
we did.
time,
Yeah, maybe
we do a write-in.
Yeah, we'll ask
Say,
him.
hey, Wes.
What's happening?
We got his number.
Do we? Probably not. Although we did run into him outside the elevator.
Yes, we did.
That's fun. Anyway, yeah, so that's cool. The new distillery, cool event space. It's going to be in Versailles, Kentucky.
Versailles.
It's weird to say Versailles. It's supposed to be Versailles, right? I mean,
Kentucky people can't speak
Versailles,
French.
Versailles, whatever. It's going to be, anyway.
Louisiana people speak French.
I don't know, I guess. But yeah, that'll be
Bourbon.
Cool. Bourbon. Now, can we move on to this one?
Now we can go on to that.
All right, awesome.
The rye. What's that finished in?
This is finished in Amburana. Sure.
And it smells like
Amburana.
It's really strong.
Yeah. I can see now why. I can see why people are like, oh my God, I'm so done with Amburana. Because, I mean, I love the smell of Amburana, but it is strong. And it's pretty strong here. I mean, it doesn't smell as like Cinnamon Toast Crunch is what the RD1 is, like that you opened up.
Yeah.
But it definitely is sweet baking spice, cinnamon. I mean, all those.
Yeah, this one is definitely cinnamon crunch cereal, or as I always say, the Biscoff.
Yep.
Biscuits.
Yeah.
This one definitely has a kind of to me it has that plus a little medicinal.
Yeah, but you know what? That might be because that one's a finished bourbon. This one's a finished rye, Amburana.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
All right. I guess about it. Yeah.
There's that rye note right away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's totally different. I mean, not to compare this with the RD1 or any of the Amburana finished bottles, but it's definitely not a typical sweet Amburana. The Amburana note is definitely there with a little bit of sharpness of the rye whiskey.
Yeah. I don't get the dill. I don't get the grass of the rye. I don't get that peppery of the rye.
And this is 100 proof, and I don't even feel the proof now. I mean, actually warmed up with that. I don't think it's too hot for 100 proof. Yeah. Maybe your first sip would be hot. Tell you what other notes I'm getting on this, if any. It's just all strong baking spice.
That's a unique smell.
Yeah, it totally is.
We've got several Amburana. How do you say that again?
Amburana?
Amburana.
Like not ambulance.
Ambulance finishes.
Amburana.
And this is unlike any of them. However, there's it's all a similar characteristic, but this is definitely different. And it's probably because it's rye, and I think this is the only one that we have in rye.
Yeah. I mean, I like it. I mean, again, for the price, $70, a cool looking bottle. I mean, let's talk about the bottle. I mean, it's kind of, it's kind of
cut and dry, black and white.
Well, it's so different. I mean,
no shades of gray here.
We were like, when we first saw that, we were like, what is he trying to do? This is kind of weird. I mean, the bottles are heavy. I mean, to be honest with you, this is a heavy bottle. It's as heavy as, I think, equally as heavy as what those Peerless bottles are. And those Peerless bottles are $130 a piece, usually on single barrel or whatever. And these are heavy bottles, and you're still getting $60 and $70 retail out of those. I'm impressed by that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and not only that, I mean, it was funny. We were kind of teasing them. We were asking them, I was like, isn't that kind of weird that bourbon people we can't see the juice?
And his reply was, when he looked at the shelves of a liquor store, he didn't see any color like you would in the
tequilas aisles or the rum aisles.
So he wanted to bring color to the bourbon section, which is all well and good, but black and white's not really color. But I understand where he's coming from.
Like
he wanted something
really
that was
standing out.
So, and again, it's he did actually have clear bottles made, but he wanted that.
Oh, that's right. He did say that. I remember. I mean, and I remember asking him, like, okay, like, I mean, this is a very simple bottle. It says obviously true story on there, but I mean, the whiskey geeks like to have all the stuff on it. Like, what's the mash bill? What's the this? What's the that? The only thing that's on here that's different, I mean, again, these are sourced, right? These say Volume 1 and Volume 2. I can't remember which ones, I think this might be called Volume 1. But why do you label it Volume 1, Volume 2?
1 and 2.
Yeah, does that infer that there's going to be more volumes? I mean, these are sourced, so at some point in time, they're not going to be the same. Although, when Angel's Envy started, I think that's...
Well, it's kind of like not that we have them up here anymore, the Bardstown. I mean, it was their series and fusions, and then now they're starting to bring out their own stuff. So,
But, again, source product, heavy bottle, $60, $70. These are decent whiskeys for that price point, and they're so different. I mean, and if you like Wes Henderson and what he did at Angel's Envy, I mean, you can bet on the fact that these are going to be good while they're waiting for their juice to come online, right?
Yep.
Ooh, you just drank it all. Mm-hmm.
Go. Take a couple bites of those. That taste profile significantly changes with the pecans. I had 2 or 3 pecans. Had that completely changed that. I like it a whole lot more after the pecans than I did straight out of the bottle. Straight out of the bottle, it's okay. Not my favorite, but again, rye is
because it's not characteristic. Yeah, but it's not as sweet for you. So I really like this one.
But with
some pecans,
the fat, protein. Oh, that's good.
So that's how you like it. Yeah.
So we are pairing tonight our spirits with dried cherries and pecans.
We should start adding cheese in there too, because I really like trying cheese with the bourbon.
Oh yeah,
That's
When we
very nice.
At the BourbonCon, we went to Chef
Weta Michael, James Beard nominee,
and so she got us. She made a flavor wheel, I think she called it, which had
palate wheel, something like that.
Palate wheel, which had a sorghum syrup.
Oh yeah,
and then honey, and then cheese,
and a rye crisp.
And the rye crisp was really good.
Interesting.
So
yeah, those are fun. So we'll have to do that.
Whatever that cheese was I
think it was Gouda or something like that. Yeah.
It's in the video. You can see it. That was a very good, but it was kind of like you're adding a fat protein to your palate, and then anyways, I'm going to do that with the bourbon.
Right.
See what I get.
We'll go back to I want to nose this one again. Going back to the bourbon. Yeah, I like that nose. It's not super strong and not super complex, but yeah, do that.
Someone says when I chew, it's loud.
It's true. Your head is acoustic. But there's a real thing about that, like not condition, but people who have that, like, when they chew. I don't know what it's called. You should probably know. You know all those weird things. You know it, don't you? You're going to flash it up in the front.
I'm not saying anything.
Mm-hmm. You know it is. Mm-hmm. That's good. That's really good. What was fun? Also, another fun thing about going to these little festivals. Again, you get a chance to. I mean, holy crap! How often or how easy is it to just go hang out and talk to a master distiller?
Yeah.
That's what's great about going to these small festivals. I mean,
we, like I said, we ran into Wes on our floor, and
we're just like, hey dude, what's up?
Yeah. And remember, that's because we were talking to him about, in that meeting, in the conference or the
breakout, whatever. Yeah, we're going to call that.
So it's funny because we got there before he got there because he had to go down put stuff in his truck. So we had his kids, his son and son-in-law, his son and his daughter-in-law sign these because we said, and to very much to their chagrin, they were like, floored we wanted their autographs. And I said, you guys, you two, are part of this story. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
the whole point of the name is the story connected with sitting down and drinking this. So even though we haven't drank it at that point, we were just buying it. Well, we brought it to him, had him sign it. But said, you guys were here talking to us. You're part of our story with this brand.
It is this. It's the legacy that Lincoln created for Wes, and Wes is now trying to create for his kids. Yeah. Even though his kids actually also worked at Angel's Envy. I think there are a couple that are still there, but
so it's Sarah.
So Drew and Sarah.
Yeah. And then Wes.
Then Wes. Yeah.
So it's funny because we handed him the bottle, and Wes didn't know that we had his son and daughter-in-law signed it, and he looked at it going, "This has already been ruined."
It was fun. I mean, it is a lot of fun. It's like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's just fun. I mean, you get geeked out, right?
Yeah. By
the big guys, but
it's fun. They're accessible. They want to talk. They want to get in front of you. They want to mingle. That's again what we like about the bourbon world. Is everybody's friendly.
It's the pull up the chair, and it's a connection, and everybody says that in the bourbon industry. It's the connections and the conversations and the memories that you're making with these bourbons.
It's that Freddie Johnson approach. Yeah. Open the bottle, and do not put that cork back in, because we're going to sit here and we're going to tell stories, and we're going to finish that bottle.
Tell stories, make up lies. There's something along those lines. I don't know.
Yeah. So of the two, which one do you prefer?
I prefer the rye.
You do?
Mm-hmm. Because I love the nose. It's a little sweet, but I love that when you taste it, it's not over the top Amburana, because that rye is just cutting it. And the proof is good. I get lost in the 90 proof just gets lost on my palate, but. I don't know. I just love these looking bottles. I'm completely 180 from when they first were released. I was like, I don't know about this. It seems kind of weird to have a bottle that looks like a tequila bottle, but I think it's kind of cool. Yeah. I mean, I think I even asked him. I said, "Do you have any plans on having other colored bottles?" And he was like, "Yeah, no, I don't. We don't anticipate having Skittles down the bourbon aisle." So
it would have been nice if he had one panel that was just clear, so you could actually see how much is left in it.
Oh.
Because right now you have
just got to go.
Because again, it's a heavy bottle, so you pick it up and it's like, I don't know really how much is in there.
It is a heavy bottle.
And to pour this, you actually really have to watch what's coming out.
Yeah, just pour it.
Because you don't know when it's coming.
So I take it you like this one better?
I like the bourbon better.
Yeah.
Even though I love the Amburana. Yeah, that wood from RD1. I love that. Love that. I think the rye to me, but again, when I had the pecans. Oh yeah, that
pretty good.
Yeah, I could drink that all night as long as I'm eating those.
Yeah. So as for distribution, I don't think did you say 10 states? Not that many, but I mean.
But more and more, because again, he's Wes Henderson.
He's Wes Henderson. He knows how to make things happen, and all the things. And so you guys are down in Kentucky. I mean, and it's an inexpensive bottle to pick up, and y'all know how successful he turned that brand of Angel's Envy into like a gold mine. There's no doubt this is going to be the same. It's a different vibe, and be honest with you, when they're done with the distillery, maybe you'll get a chance to walk through the tunnel that he said.
Oh,
He asked for a tunnel just because he wanted a tunnel.
So the Kentucky Castle, tunnel, distillery. That'll be cool.
Oh yeah. Didn't we also read or did he tell us that they're going to be doing a special experience? Not the. Yeah, we're talking about.
So the castle will have a bar, the tasting room, hotel, event center, and.
Oh yeah. You can work there for free.
Yes, for a weekend.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that stuff's kind of cool. Those of us who are whiskey people, we have the crazy collections, and we go to festivals. And now it's like I don't know. I think that stuff is cool. It's so fun to just participate in stuff like that.
So it's kind of like Pursuit Spirits, the whole shebang. So Kenny, Ryan, you have to start offering the whole shebang plus platinum experience where they actually have to work
Wait, isn't that what you guys do when you do the bottling? Volunteer for bottling for the?
Yes, we do.
Anyway.
When we work there for bottling, so we unbox the bottles, we wash them, we fill them, we put put the corks in, label them, put the shrinky dink on, and then put them in the box.
I mean, it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
$0 labor.
Kenny.
And yeah, you know what? It's brilliant. I mean, you're going to rent a hotel room at the Kentucky Castle, and then you're going to work for free and get a picture with Wes, probably.
And then come away with probably a bottle.
Probably a bottle, yeah.
And it's well worth it. We loved the experience that we had at the whole shebang at Pursuit Spirits. So, yeah, if he does that there,
no, we'll
sign up.
The only thing you need is PPE.
Personal protection equipment. Like what?
Whatever is required.
Wasn't anything at... Oh, yes. You had to wear eye gear and glasses and gloves. And
it is not an accounting term in this industry.
Wooden-toed shoes.
Okay. Anyway, we're done. We are done here. Hang around. Watch the rest of the video if you want to hear more from Wes and see what he has to say about death. His new career. Or in addition to his new career.
Yeah.
All right, you guys.
Anyway.
Let us know what you think. Talk to you guys in the next video.
Yeah.
Ciao, Bella.
And what will that next video be?
We don't know.
Maybe Dark Arts. Maybe Never Say Die. Maybe W.H.
Oh my goodness.
Brayer.
Whatever it is, it'll be on the website. Or on the YouTube channel. See you guys. Mitchell. Out.
Things moving. Now, I can tell you real quick before we get started, by the way, my name's Wes. We're not doing a tasting. I wanted to have plenty of time to, hey Jessica, how are you? I wanted to have plenty of time to take questions and just have some fun and do some interactive stuff. So all the booze is in there, so you can come in there and taste what is there. But, I really just wanted to get started with something that I think is really fun, and then we'll get started and we'll just go down whatever rabbit holes we decide to go down. But here you go. We created iconic bottles in the past. We created some of the most award-winning liquid in the modern bourbon history. So how do we look at all those things and continue to be unique? We pioneered secondary barrel finishing in American whiskey. To me, this is an evolution, is what's happening here. But when you decide to go back into something that we've already been blessed to have a tremendous amount of success in for multiple generations, it's like, okay, what's going to be different? What do you think? Thank you. Everybody doing good this morning?
Yeah, we're doing great.
Okay. What do you want to talk about? Anybody? Yeah, go ahead.
How old were you when you started doing stuff with your father?
That's a really good question, and we'll and this is great because we'll do questions and answers and all that stuff throughout the whole thing, and then I'll share some stories along the way. Well, let me start telling the story, and that'll answer your question. I grew up in this industry, and I say that because my father Lincoln started at Brown Forman when he was I don't know. Can't calculate how old he was because I'm from Kentucky. We don't do math real good. But it was 1964. I can tell you that was 2 years before I was born, which makes me 58. So the only thing I really knew was Dad working at Brown Forman and going to work with my dad on weekends a lot of times. And I was always a science geek from day one. And even though Dad created tons of products and R&D and all these amazing things, Dad was a scientist at heart. He was a grain chemist. He set out to be a doctor. Organic chemistry kicked his ass, like it does any doctors here. You all understand that. Those of you that made it through it. So he decided that he would just get a degree in chemistry, just basic chemistry. His first job was at Churchill Downs, and he was testing horse urine for banned substances. Not real glamorous, right? So my dad, it's funny, growing up, he'd say sometimes he'd pick up something, he'd drink, and he'd say, "Oh, it tastes like horse piss." I'm like, how do you know? So, that was his first. I'm sorry, when I talk about dad, sometimes I get a little choked up. So my first memories, my first memories were going up to Brown Forman early times where they were distilling, and my comfort aroma is not grandma's apple pie, it is fermenting mash. And it's the same thing I would feel when I would walk up to Angel's Envy and I would stand in the parking lot and the windows were open and I could smell that. So from a child, Dad would take me to work a lot of times over the weekend. And I would go into the R&D lab and Dad would be working, and my dad, I don't understand it. I would never let my kids do this. My dad let me roam around the lab with probably the equivalent of millions of dollars worth of lab equipment today. The entire R&D department at Brown Forman. And as a matter of fact, and I know that people will be pissed when they got to work Monday morning and they could tell a 5-year-old was in the lab messing with their very expensive equipment and their tests that they probably worked on for 2 years. So I would do that. I'll digress. And for those of you that know me, and I'll explain it for those of you that don't, I'm the poster child for ADD. So we will be all over the place here. Eventually, it all kind of ties back together, I promise. But it's a rough journey, but hopefully it comes back. So one day I was at Brown Forman with my dad, and I had left open. I don't know why I looked in the refrigerator. The refrigerator that held all the proprietary yeast for Brown Forman. So think Old Forester, what the earliest, most continuously produced bourbon in bourbon history now, and I'm sure there might have been some Jack Daniel's yeast in there, I'm sure, whatever. So apparently I left that door open. And fortunately, my father did what I do very much so now when my kids come in and destroy someplace, I'll make a sweep around the building to make sure that everything is, I leave a hotel room, do y'all do that sometimes? Yeah. You make a sweep to make sure you have everything. And Dad made a sweep and then realized that I'd left the door open. So I almost single-handedly destroyed all the yeast at Brown Forman. If I would have known I was going to be a competitor of theirs, I probably would have said, "Good job." Spot on. I wasn't able to foresee that at such a young age, but that was the competitive early Wes. So once again, a long-winded question. So that's really when not that I necessarily worked with my dad, but that's when I started understanding a little bit what Dad did. Now, once again, Dad was a scientist. The whiskey making part and the bourbon part, and nobody cared who made the bourbon up until maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago tops, really, when I think Woodford kind of brought that to the forefront. Then everybody started learning about all these wonderful figures in the industry and all this family history and stuff like that. So I was just fascinated from a science perspective. To me, there was nothing sexy about bourbon making. So as a matter of fact, I didn't necessarily want to do what my dad did. I thought it was cool, but I'm like, okay, this is fun, this is great. I kind of wanted to forge my own path, and eventually I did that. But those are the first memories of working with Dad, and I'll talk more as we go along about how Dad and I managed to come full circle and get back together, over the years. So a lot happened. I grew up, I studied, believe it or not, learned how to fly airplanes, studied aeronautics, which has nothing to do with bourbon at all. I still able to do that every once in a while, but I never thought I would be in the bourbon industry. My first job was at 15. I worked in radio. I was a radio DJ for years. I worked at a bunch of radio stations in Louisville, some iconic rock and roll radio stations in Louisville, and I thought that was fun. I DJ'd in clubs. Had no plans of going back in the bourbon industry. Eventually, I made my way to Brown Forman, and I worked there for a number of years. Didn't work with Dad, and I left Brown Forman, and this is crazy if you think about it, but maybe not so crazy. I felt like as long as I was at Brown Forman, I would kind of be in my dad's shadow. and probably stupidly, because it's not a bad shadow to be in. And it's somebody to learn from, but kind of as a young person, I'm like, I got to get out and do my own thing. So that's what I did. Left the industry, got married, managed to wake up one morning with 6 kids. Don't ask me how that happened. I have no idea. I say I don't know how it happened. People say, well, did you plan to have 6 kids? I'm like, well, no. Did we? And my wife says, yeah, I had a plan. I just didn't know what the plan was when we had 6 kids. But now it's come in very useful. It's great for tax deductions. That's what I tell people. You have one. How many people have 1 kid? 1 kid. One's harder than 2. Let me tell you this. Would you agree sometimes? Because there's nobody to entertain them. You're stuck being the entertainer all the time. Mom, dad, mom, dad. So you have a second one, right? So then if you have 2 boys, you got to say, okay, well, maybe I'll go for 3 to even things out a little bit. So then you end up with 3. After that, that doesn't work because it's an odd number. It doesn't work at Disney World, right? It just doesn't work. It's an odd number. So then you have another one, and then you start playing that game. Then there are tax deductions after that, is the way I look at it. But then you start playing that game like, okay, and then, and I had all boys. You chase the girl. Maybe we'll have a girl. Maybe we'll get this time. Maybe this will be the time. And before you know it, you have to stop the madness at some point in time. And then you end up with 6 boys. And it's really funny if you see my wife, Julie, she's about 5 foot tall, 98 pounds soaking wet, and can bench press and deadlift, Lord knows what. She owns 3 fitness centers. And, the boys are 6 foot or tall or whatever. She'll be up in there, she'll be like this. Julie will be up like this. And they're like, okay, Mom, whatever you want, Mom. But I talk about the 6 boys. Let me show you a picture. Hold on a minute. So out of the 6 right now, Spencer's working in IT. He'll eventually be with us at True Story. Andrew is in operations. Andrew, I don't know if he's in here. He's pouring. You'll see Andrew in the other room when you go in there today. Connor was here yesterday. Actually, there's Connor. Ian is 22, so Andrew works with me. Ian majors in video games right now. Connor works with us in operations. Christian works with us in operations. Christian, God bless him, he's new to the company. Every time I see him on the forklift, I'm scared to death because he's just learning how to do it. But he got to start somewhere, right? My son Kyle. Kyle's 35. He's the oldest. Kyle is in charge of all of our operations and production for the entire organization, which he did at Angels Envy as well. So Dad started a little brand called Woodford Reserve. I'm sure you guys have heard of that. Mm-hmm. And that was right about the time I left Brown Forman and started having kids and doing other things like that. Woodford was the brainchild of Owsley Frazier. Well, Owsley Brown, not Owsley Frazier, Owsley Brown. One of the long, obviously Brown Forman. Owsley was an amazing man. He died way too young. He was a visionary, and Owsley saw this mothball distillery called LeBrow and Graham out along Todd's Creek in the middle of near Millville, Kentucky, outside of Versailles, which was abandoned. Everything had been stripped out of it. Copper was gone. It was overgrown. It was a fixer-upper, as we call it. Same thing when we bought Angels Envy, the building for Angels Envy. It was a fixer-upper. But in that, Owsley saw an opportunity to resurrect the history, some of the long-term history from Brown Forman, and bring it back to the forefront. I don't know how far out he thought about creating a bourbon that would be a premium bourbon. They probably didn't realize that. Woodford, in my mind, was really one of the first, I hate using the word craft because it's used so loosely these days, small batch, super premium bourbons that people were really talking about. And they identified Dad as the master distiller of Woodford Reserve. So I think Woodford really kind of started things. Peggy, what year did Woodford launch? 96? Okay. Is what?
94 to 92.
Okay. And by the way, Peggy knows Stevens is in the back. Peggy's a dear friend of ours. Hopefully you'll see Peggy sometime. Wait, Peggy, say hey. Peggy also a legacy in the industry. Peggy's in the Bourbon Hall of Fame. Peggy knows Stevens and Associates. She does some amazing things. She's built brand homes all around the world, And Peggy is I'm blessed to have Peggy working with me on some projects as well, which has been so much fun. And as y'all know, the bourbon industry, it's so close. You know, we all know each other for generations. So Woodford was really kind of one of the first, let's call it craft whiskeys to come about. And Dad was really proud of Woodford. At the very beginning, he didn't really like the stills. How many of y'all been to Woodford? Those pot stills, my dad hated them, by the way. And he's the one that specified. He kind of liked the Scottish style of still, but you know, they were getting some scalding at the bottom of it, and they've done some things to remedy that, but Dad was never really happy about that. And they started out just like a lot of, you know, there was a lot of noise when we started Angels Envy, we sourced and stuff like that. That's how Woodford got started. You know, they didn't make whiskey on day one. Well, Brown Forman did, right? It was their whiskey. But it was that first, one of the first brands to really start from scratch and start bringing things to market and then start bringing their own distillery online. And now, look at it. It's, you know, I think it's one of the best, I think one of the best whiskeys Brown Forman has is Old Forester. At the end of the day, if I really had to pick one or the other, I would say it's probably Old Forester. So Dad stayed at Woodford through his retirement. And I had found my way down to Florida. You know, we kind of had a big family change, and I got recruited to run a business down in Florida, so I left Brown Forman. Ran some businesses, bought and sold some businesses, had most of the kids down in Florida. Dad had been retired for a few years. And I wanted to get back in the industry, so I started doing some consulting. And then before you know it, I'm running a little brand called Conecuh Ridge, which is Clyde Mays whiskey now. I don't know if y'all heard of Clyde Mays whiskey or not as well. And that's how I started coming back into the business. But then I thought, wow, wouldn't it be? So I'm down in Florida and started feeling the passion again and started thinking as Dad retired of all the things that my dad had created. Inaugural member of the Bourbon Hall of Fame. All these amazing brands. And the hits, so I got out of that childish thing of I don't want to do what my dad does. I start to understand, appreciate. I'm kind of like that with art now. You know, I went to the Met in New York City a few weeks ago, and finally I realized at 58, I'm like, I kind of get this shit now. Understand? It's beautiful. I can appreciate it. I can take a minute to appreciate the depth and all the artistry that went into creating it. And I started looking at bourbon much like that. And that really when it started to click. So I thought, I'm not gonna say like one morning, but like some things I kind of spring up in bed in the middle of the night, and my wife hates it, with an idea. Wouldn't it be fun to do a bourbon as a family, you know, with the boys? And I got these. So, okay, let's do something as a family. This is fun. This could be fun. So Dad's retired. I fly up to Kentucky. We're living in kind of Melbourne Beach, Florida area. So I fly up to Kentucky, and I'll never forget this. I don't remember what day it was. It was either Saturday or Sunday morning, I'm sure. And we were sitting in the basement at their house in Lexington. And I said, Dad, I would love to do a bourbon as a family. What do you think? And Dad did what dads do, no matter what crazy ass idea their kid comes up with. Dad said, okay. That's how Angels Envy started. Just like that. So I started Angels Envy. Pulled Dad out of retirement. Went back to Florida. Remember I told you about Julie, 5 foot tall, 98 pounds, soaking wet, owns 3 fitness centers, doesn't take any shit. So I go down to Florida and I tell Julie we're moving to Kentucky. Now I didn't tell Julie anything. I said, honey, what do you think? This might be fun, you know, it might be okay, we could have a good time. And Julie, like my dad said, because she's used to all my crazy ass ideas, she said, okay. Just like that. That's how Angels Envy got started. And so we loaded up 6 kids. Actually, she loaded up. The kids had to be in school to start football and everything like that in like August. I had to sell the house in Florida. So she brought everybody up to Kentucky. 6 boys, 4 dogs, 2 fish, 2 birds, a bearded dragon, all those things, moved to Kentucky for an idea, for a dream. She parked the boys in an extended stay hotel. And as a matter of fact, the maintenance guy at the hotel taught one of my kids how to tie his tie for school, which I'm ashamed to this day that's how it had to happen. But that's where they stayed for several months until I sold the house in Florida. And then we came up for this crazy ass idea called Angels Envy. So what do? You've got an idea that you got to make happen. Fortunately, in those years that I was gone from the industry, from the whiskey industry, I learned about other businesses and how to run businesses and how to be a marketer and how to have team members and how to be successful in that regard. So that skill set was very handy when I came back. We have my father Lincoln, who, Lord knows, he can make whiskey, right? So I tell people a lot of times, I could have never done Angels Envy without my dad. Dad couldn't have done it without me. And it was just that perfect combination of teamwork so we put together a group of friends and investors. You want to hear about this? Is this cool? Is this okay? Yeah. We started Angels Envy with, I think, like $400,000. That's it. Today, it's probably worth a couple $2 billion. It's a global brand. And I started in my basement. That's literally, my first office was down there. Much like we do today, not much like exactly the way we do today. The R&D takes place generally on my kitchen counter. I have a multi-million-dollar lab at Angels Envy where I could do anything I wanted to with it, like the one that I wrecked at Brown Forman. And the innovation takes place maybe on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon when the boys come over for dinner, and now 9 grandkids, so you can imagine the amount of chaos that's happening over there. So in the midst of all that chaos, that's really where some of the magic happens with creation. And nothing's off limits. We have some crazy ass stuff that'll never see the light of day, some other things that I think are damn near genius that, some of it's already out, some of it we'll see. But I think with Angels Envy, how Angels Envy evolved that by itself is a fun thing to talk about. So when we came into the business, we didn't have a distillery yet. So how are we going to bring a brand to life? We're going to build one. So we did what everybody had done in the industry for 100 years. Distillers have been selling whiskey to each other forever, just nobody knew about it. Think about when Heaven Hill, burned themselves to the ground. Well, that was Mother Nature, they didn't do it. But, who came? A bunch of people came to the rescue, other people made their whiskey for years. So it's the same type of thing. So we were going to source whiskey. And just to tell you about the whiskey boom, by the way, has anybody here ever bought or sold a barrel of whiskey at all? Anybody? So to give you some context, back in 2009 when I started Angels Envy, on the open market, the wholesale market, you could buy a barrel of Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey that was 4 years old for about $450. Last year, that same barrel was $4,000. And to this day, I beat my head up against the wall. So we had the opportunity to buy like 80,000 barrels in 2009 because some billionaire from New Zealand, God bless him, decided he wanted to fly helicopters and crashed it. And he died and had to sell all of his bourbon. If I was a billionaire like that, I would leave the house. Can you imagine having all that money, being that rich and dying, doing something stupid like that? But that's going on like in a blaze of glory, right? So we bought, I think, a couple thousand barrels. I would have killed to have that 80,000 barrels that we could have bought back then. So we bought the bourbon. To this day, nobody knows where it came from. We've never talked about it. We had some contractual obligations, but those are probably expired. But most people thought we got it from Brown Forman. We didn't. But I wasn't going to take some bourbon that somebody else made and put our name on it. I didn't feel right about that. I didn't feel good about that. So we start thinking, so how can we make this bourbon different? What's the differentiator that we can take that bourbon, put our mark on it, make it ours, and feel comfortable that we've created something that's unique? So we started kicking out, and the other thing too is I wanted my dad to feel really excited about coming back in the industry. So I went to Dad, I said, Dad, Think of all the things in your life that you did at Brown Forman that for one reason or another never saw the light of day. It was too early. It wasn't the right moment, whatever, things you really like. So let's consider those things as options as we build this brand. And one of the things we really talked about a lot, which we never did, was enhanced maturation. To this day, I think there's a place for that in our industry, not as a substitute for maturation, but as an enhancement. I'm talking about controlled with temperature and extreme temperatures, high and low, and things like that. Once again, there's still no substitute for Mother Nature, but enhanced maturation, I think, is a lot of fun, and we'll probably play with that a little bit, not to cut corners, but just because you can do some really cool things with it. But we kept coming back to secondary barrel finishes. As you all know, Scotch has been doing them for years, and Brown Forman owned Glenmorangie. Well, they didn't own Glenmorangie, they distributed Glenmorangie. So Dad was very familiar with secondary barrel finishes, and he just liked it. So let's put it like this. Years and years post at Brown Forman, Dad had already played with a lot of this stuff. Barrel finishes. And once again, it just never was the right time. And Brown Forman is a notoriously conservative company. They're great if you own their stock. Not right now.
Right.
But they're great people. They're great business people. But and it's not just Brown Forman, it's big companies. Big companies are not creative. They are not innovators. They don't create businesses, they buy them and then they kill them, is how it generally works, right?
Yeah.
So we kept coming back to secondary barrel finishes. So we said, okay, I said, Dad, let's plant our flag there. So remember 2009, nobody was really familiar with that. We started talking about taking bourbon and putting it in another barrel, you'd have thought the sky was falling. Think back to that time. Well, it's not bourbon. Okay, well, we'll talk about that more in just a minute. So, we love fortified wines. Sherry, port, Madeira, all these other, white muscatel, which you see with True Story. I haven't got True Story yet. We got 2 hours, relax. Just kidding. I'll get there, I promise. You're like, get me the hell out of here. So we decided that we were going to do fortified wines as our secondary barrel finishes. So I wanted to find these exotic barrels that were made by monks on top of a mountain that had a great story, and I wanted to bring those down and make that part of the whole thing. And I just couldn't find anything like that. We ended up finding these port barrels from Armindo in Portugal. Armindo is the guy that you see, everybody's got a guy, right? Got a guy. Armindo's our guy. So Armindo has car stereos one day, Rolex is another day, port barrels another day. So we got our barrels from Armindo. And so we started Angel's Envy, finished in port wine casks. Hence, the first commercially successful bourbon finished in a secondary barrel. And there was a lot of noise. This isn't bourbon. I'm like, no, it's not. It's bourbon finished in port wine barrels. And I repeated that mantra over and over and over again until people finally started to say, oh, okay, that's okay. And now they're everywhere. Shortly after creating Angel's Envy bourbon finished in port wine barrels, I created a little brand called Angel's Envy Rye, which was finished in rum casks. If you've never had that, I encourage you to try it. It's still one of my go-tos. It is very bold, and I hope you try True Story next door, because that's why I'm really here. True Story Rye is finished in Amberana cask. We'll talk about that in a minute. Once again, very bold flavor. So we did some other things along the way. We did, some other special releases. Angel's Envy Cask Strength. The 2012 was our first. Anybody have a 2012 Cask Strength, maybe? If you've got it in your, Chuck's got it. That's probably a $8,000 bottle now or something like that. But I have some of those at home, so you can't do that. So we built Angel's Envy into kind of a global brand. Not kind of, it is a global brand. And a company called Bacardi came along, and great family. the Bacardi family, Facundo Bacardi, all those guys, love them to death. I felt like they would be a great partner, and they would be good stewards if we ever did decide to sell Angel's Envy. And eventually that happened. So we sold Angel's Envy to Bacardi, and I stayed there for several years after that. And really my job, I felt like well, first of all, my job was to be all around the world doing kind of like what we're doing here, just pulling up a chair, was to spread the bourbon gospel, but also in the business to try to keep the guardrails up. Like I said a minute ago, big companies take small companies and screw them up. Bacardi was smart enough to leave us alone. Smartest move they ever made, and really, if you look at Harvard Business Studies, it's one of the best examples of an acquisition you can find in our industry, because it was a family business. You acquire a family business, and I've seen it in our industry. High West, for example, got Dave Perkins, dear friend of mine, boom, gone. A lot of these little brands that get bought out, the owners just can't coexist, or the creators can't coexist with the company that purchased them. And I think you lose the heart and the soul a lot of times if you do that. Now, when I left Angel's Envy, I was very comfortable. First of all, some of my boys stayed. I felt like I left my heart and soul and instilled in our team there. They know what Angel's Envy is all about. And to this day, they still do. When I go in that plant, it's, oh my God, Mr. Wes, great to see you. We miss you. We're carrying on. We're doing a great job, and they are. Continues to be a great brand. So, I'm not gonna say I got bored. Oh, bored's a good word for it. I felt like there was more that I wanted to do. I've always done a lot of other things in life. I like flying airplanes. I was a firefighter for a long time, and I really enjoyed that. Now I also work in law enforcement and do some other things, which we'll talk about as well. I still do that. So I thought retirement would be, okay, this will be fun. Got a house in Florida, been blessed, sold Angel's Envy, made $1 or $2. So I retired. And that lasted about a year and a half. As you saw in the video, I was the last one to figure out what everybody else knew. And that was, there's no way on earth Wes Henderson's gonna retire and not do anything. So, just like with my dad, the boys kind of started talking, and they said, wow, let's try this again as a family. So back to those 6 kids again. And I said, okay. What Dad said, right? Okay. So we decided to start a new bourbon brand. And that's kind of daunting, right? Coming off of what? Woodford Reserve, coming off of all the other brands that Dad had created. And how do we do this? And once again, I think the video can say it better than I did, or I can right now. In my head at first, I'm thinking, how in the world can I top this? Right? And it got in my head. It really did. I'm like, holy shit, we had a great bottle with Angel's Envy. We had great liquid. We had all these things. I'm gonna try to do this again and not miserably fail. So I managed to get that out of my head. And it wasn't a matter of doing better, it was just a matter of being different and a matter of continuing to be unique, evolving, turning the page, the next chapter. And that's how we came up with True Story. And I think you can tell already that the packaging is a little bit different, right? Have any of y'all held the bottle or seen the bottle yet before? Yeah. We go back down here. There's the kids. Actually, before we do that, let me talk about this real quick. And we still got time for questions here. So let me tell you about the name. I sign bottles a lot. And I tell people all the time, like, open this bottle I'm signing for you. Do not put it on the shelf. There's so many stories inside this bottle to be told that will only be told if you open that bottle and share it with your friends. That's really meaningful for me because our family is present at those moments that matter. We're present in the form of, and we're not peeking in your window, but we're present in the form of a bourbon or whiskey we created, and we're there with you. We're at that table. We're at that birthday celebration. We're at the retirement celebration. We're at that graduation. We're there when you're toasting a loved one that you lost. And it's not been lost on me that. I know it may sound kind of hokey or whatever, but because look, we're not, this is rocket science, we're not curing cancer here with bourbon, but we're bringing people together in a way that fortunately today, we need more than anything else. If you can sit down and have a bourbon and forget about all the political bullshit and all this other stuff that's going on in the world, this would be a better place. And it doesn't have to be bourbon. If there's another way we can figure out how to get together and do those things, that's fine. I just think bourbon's one of the best ways.
Yeah.
So that's where the pull up a chair thing came to, is that, we're going to do what I just did right here. And I did an event in Houston, just like I did here years ago, and just sat down and talked like we're talking. And that cemented in my brain where we wanted to go today. So that's where the name True Story came from. And that's how we want you to think of us as we're going forward. So let me tell you about the whiskey. Our bourbon, which you're going to taste in the next room there. Can you advance this, Brian? Just hit the down. Wait a minute, I have a clicker here. There you go. This is Brian, by the way. Brian Gelfo's a dear friend. Brian and I talked about working together for years, and he also created a little brand called Brothers of the Leaf, which I encourage you to try in the other room. They are now a sister brand of True Story, and Brian is the founder and creator, and it's really good. It's really good. So look, it's no surprise that we decided to stay in the same sandbox with finishing. I didn't feel like we had to, but I felt like we do it better than anybody else. As good or better than anybody else, in most cases better than anybody else. So we have a bourbon here that's a 4 to 6 year old bourbon. It's sourced from 2 different producers, and this is finished in white muscatel barrels. And muscatel is a dessert grape. I've never played with it before until this. When you taste it in there, I think you'll find it's similar to Angel's Envy, not in the way it tastes, but the accessibility, the drinkability is something you can introduce to somebody new to the category, but it's also complex enough if you're more advanced bourbon consumer, you can appreciate all those subtleties as well. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds, very much like Angel's Envy is in that regard. It's just, it's a little bit of everything to everybody, and I truly believe that you're going to see that here. Once again, the flavor profile is entirely different. You get that little bit of sweetness, but look, just come and try it. I can sit here and talk about it all day, and I do this all the time. The best thing to do a lot of times is push it across the table and see. And the price point's great. It's $59, so it's exactly what you would expect.
What led you to white muscatel?
The boys came up with that. We had a dear friend who works in the barrel business. Gotcha. Jessica's here. A dear friend that works in the barrel business, and she helped us find these barrels, and I just love them. I love the white. I love the way it. First of all, we do a lot of times. This is behind the scenes stuff. So when we're looking at finishing things, this is probably a surprise. I'll buy the bottle of white muscatel. I'll get an eyedropper. I'll take a little bit of it, put it in whatever bourbon we're thinking about doing, like microdose it, and I'll look at how that changes the bourbon. And then if I get a baseline, I'm saying, okay, I like that taste profile in general. I like the way that works together, and I think if I'm good at anything, it's piecing together what tastes good together. Then we pursue it from there. But that's the easy part. Then we gotta find.
In that parking lot and gave you some white port that you were playing around with.
Right.
It was literally.
Remember that? I said this. So
like
Jessica.
White Castle parking lot.
Jessica met me in a parking lot with a vial of white muscatel. It's like a fucking drug deal going on. Really, I think I might even said that. She handed it over to me, and I'm like looking around. I'm like, making sure the cops aren't there.
It was very fast.
And you're right.
That's hilarious.
But that's the easy part. We've still got to figure out how that's going to piece together in the final analysis. So what bourbon are we going to use? How long is that bourbon going to be aged that we're using? Where did it come from? What's the mash bill? Where are the muscatel barrels coming from? How long does the bourbon need to age? How long does it need to finish in the white muscatel? Is it a first use, second use, third use muscatel barrel or finishing barrel? And I've got to sift through all that to get back to that flavor that I liked when I first had that eyedropper and was dropping those drops of muscatel in the. So and sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you can't get there. More often than not, you know, we're able to get there. That's a really good question. Oh, where'd it go? Okay. Any other questions about the bourbon?
So I guess this isn't about the bourbon per se, but the packaging with so true story, not being able to see the liquid, not being able to see the story, it's an interesting decision, and I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. It's there when it comes out. That's good. But that was a thought I had in the back of my head for quite a while, and honestly, it kind of got in the way a little bit. Well, not got in the way. I think it was smart for us, you to think that, and for me to think that as well. So we had to have a different package. So first thing I started looking at was shape. Okay, one of the ways to differentiate a bottle is by the shape. So then we came up with what I thought was just this cool shape. And we should have had some bottles in here, but I didn't think about bringing them. But then I started looking down the bourbon aisle. I'm like, wait a minute. And then I looked in the tequila aisle. I looked in the rum aisle. And I'm thinking the one thing that's missing on the bourbon aisle is there is no color. You know, we look at a bottle of, what's the really expensive tequila? What the frickin' Casa Azul. Can't see that. How much are you paying for that? So, but I understand though, color in bourbon can be a little more important than color in other things. So I really felt like that look, if everybody knows who makes it, if they know it's our family, hopefully we built a relationship with you all, and you guys trust that, so that's one thing in our favor.
Yep.
If in a lot of our ads, you'll see us pouring it. You'll see the color there. So I'm not saying it's not important, but the minute I start being uncomfortable with it was the minute I knew I was down the right track. Because it's something that is impactful enough, and you notice it, and I guarantee if it's sitting on a shelf with 20 other bourbons, it will look nothing like all the other ones. I almost thought about putting a little oil strip down the side. I'm like, nah, if I'm all in, I'm all in. You know, and it's just to kind of push your chips across the table, and then cross your fingers and hope you didn't fuck it up. And so far, I'd say 99% of the time it hasn't come up, but it does, and I answer just the way we talked about. And I appreciate, that's a great question. Thank you, I really appreciate that. All right, let me tell you about the rye, and then we've only got about a few more minutes, and then we'll do some questions, okay? You guys have been wonderfully attentive. I think I've only lost about 2 or 3, so usually the room's about 80% empty by this time. Okay, all right, so let's see if this comes back up. So let me tell you about the rye while we're waiting. It may not come back up. The rye in the white bottle is, oh shit, we'll see that yet.
We'll stick around.
This is exciting too. So this is a rye whiskey. It's sourced from 2 different producers, one in Kentucky and one in Indiana. You can probably figure those 2 out. Finished in Amburana and PX and Oloroso sherry casks. This is a party in your mouth. As you will try that next door, it's 100 proof. You would never know it if I hadn't have told you. It is a roller coaster of flavors that just bounces all over the place. It's the gift that keeps on giving. It changes as it sits in your mouth. It changes as you drink it. It changes as it sits in your glass in front of you. It'll make the best old fashioned you ever have. I promise that. I will bet all my kids on it. Take them. If I'm wrong. So I promise you will love this. So please try this next door. Price point on this, believe it or not, is only $69.
Yeah.
Angel's Envy Rye is $89, and I'll pay that all day long for it. That kind of sucks to have to buy it these days. But I do. You'll love this. So once again, we're being creative. Now Amburana might scare you right off the bat. When you hear Amburana, like, oh wow, that's really powerful. This is the art of balance. This is the art of when creating these, in my opinion, you don't be too heavy-handed with the Amburana. You get it on the front end, then it dances to that sherry, the PX, and it dances to Oloroso. Then you get the spiciness on the rye in the background, and I promise you it will not be heavy-handed with the Amburana, so don't be scared. You want to see the rendering in the new distillery?
Oh yeah.
So we bought this place, I know, shit. We bought this place called the Kentucky Castle. Has anybody ever heard of the Kentucky Castle before? Which you saw in the video. So what we're doing is, we've got the Kentucky Castle right here. 4 minutes up the road, we have 150 acres, the old Edgewood Farm in Versailles, where we're building the new True Story Distillery. So you'll be able to come and stay in the castle. Let's say you want to do a barrel pick with your friends. Let's say you want to come and do a distilling experience for the weekend. You want to come in and distill with us in the distillery. You can stay in the castle. We have a spa there. We have a farm-to-table restaurant. We have a great bar. We have a pool. All those things. You can come and stay there and enjoy those amenities, and then come to the distillery as well. So once again, here's kind of this screensaver thing's really driving me crazy. We only got like 3 minutes left here. Okay. There we go. So visitor center, tasting room, some lodging on that property as well. That is a really, Luckett and Farley designed this. They've done a number of distilling operations. So the view there is looking from the brand home. So let's say you're standing at the brand home where the tour starts. You're looking up this reflecting pool towards the distillery. Secret? There's a tunnel underneath that goes. I just said I want a tunnel. I don't care where it goes. I want a tunnel. The other thing that I really want in these old buildings, I want an old safe. You know those big old bank safes, and you see these old buildings and stuff like that? I've always wanted one of those too. Haven't figured out how to get one yet, but maybe we'll helicopter one in. And a couple of my business partners are here. They're saying, hell no. Make my office. Yeah, they're gonna make it my office. We'll close that door, put it on a time block. So what do you think? It's kind of cool, isn't it?
That's cool.
I don't think I have any more pictures. Okay, now.
What made you buy the castle?
What made me buy the castle? Well, as you saw my son Kyle on there earlier, he's like, you really buy a castle? Initially, I wanted to put the distillery at the castle. But then, it's got such atmosphere. There's weddings there, there's all this stuff going on. I'm thinking, I don't want to put a loud-ass distillery right there with the Kentucky Castle. That 150 acres became available right up the road. It's already zoned industrial. Also might have had a zoning fight on my hands. So I'm like, I'm not gonna spend 5 years, 10 years tied up in all that. So we bought the other property. So that's where it ended up. Okay, just got a couple more minutes, or a few more minutes. Questions, anybody? You've been a wonderful crew so far. Come on, anything, hit me with anything.
What's your favorite kind of airplane to fly?
Right now, a Vision Jet. Are you familiar with that? Cirrus Vision Jet, the new generation. Really nice, guys. It's a great airplane. It's got a parachute. The fucking airplane has a parachute. The whole airplane. Which, if I'm flying it, that's probably an important thing to have. But it also negates the problem you have with having parachutes inside the airplane for the people, because that's like, who gets one? You can only have so many. There usually aren't enough. So, and I'm already down, waving at everybody. See ya. Good luck sorting it all out. So it's a great, it also has a button, I swear I'll be quiet, called Safe Return. You ever heard of that? Literally, if you get incapacitated, you can push a button. It will land, it'll pick the airport, it'll land the airplane, pull it up, stop it, and you can get out.
Nice.
How about that?
That's cool.
Once again, very good thing to have if I'm flying the airplane. So great question. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Any future true story releases, are you going to stick with the same bottle colors or anything?
I don't know yet. So we thought about changing colors along the way, but I want to be careful about that. I don't want to get into that thing where we're chasing all these different colors and then we look like a box of crayons on the shelf. So we do have a clear bottle, which is a lot of fun too, with some gold lettering on the front and some other things. And really, I kind of hedge my bets on that too, in case I needed to pull that out for some reason. So we'll decide how that. So we have some other really cool. We're not going to chase the color palette though. There's other ways you can take those bottles and make them really, really cool. Yes, sir.
What's your experience with Blacken? Did you meet Dave Pickerel, or did you work with Dave Pickerel?
I've known Dave. Dave was a dear friend for years. A friend of my father's as well. So we're talking about Blacken whiskey, which is an incredible whiskey that Dave Pickerel was the founding master distiller for. And how that came about was there was a project that was unfinished that Dave was working on. It was finishing in white port casks, Blacken whiskey in white port casks. And the band came to me and his family came to me and said, Wes, we would love for you, because Dave loved you, and I spoke at his funeral, his memorial service. If anybody's going to finish this project, this kind of makes me emotional as well, we want you to finish it. So I met the band, had one of the best dinners I've ever had with Lars Ulrich and those guys, and loved them, loved their passion for what they did, and I agreed to do to finish the project. So there's a blackened whiskey Wes Henderson release out there that's finished in white port casks. I encourage you to try that if you can find it. It was great. But Dave passed away, as you can tell. Obviously, I spoke at his memorial service, but Dave was a true treasure in this industry and is dearly missed. So, anybody else? So nobody asked about the last thing we'll close with. So I told you I worked in law enforcement. Does anyone know what I do there?
Detective?
Corner.
I'm a death investigator with the coroner's office. So if you get shot, stabbed, blowed up, run over, poisoned, drowned, car wreck, whatever, I'm there with you. So hopefully we won't see each other anytime soon. I'm working on taking appointments because it's a lot easier to get up at 3 in the morning and going out when it's 3 degrees outside. So that's a fun thing that I say it's a fun thing that I do. Listen. Is that creepy? So 4 of us are either former or current firefighters in the family. I transitioned over to the coroner's office because I thought it was really cool. But point being is that we feel like that work in the community is making whiskey. Once again, it's not rocket science. It's not curing cancer. It's those other things. It's us as a family, and you saw it in the film. It's the things that we enjoy doing. We feel like we have a responsibility to do out in the community. I just happen to have a really weird thing. Most interesting thing I've ever done, guys. Solving puzzles. That's what I do, is solve puzzles. All right, one last thing. We're blessed to be able to do what we do for one reason. That's because you guys are here today. It's because of all those bottles on the shelf that I talked about. You picked up a bottle of Woodford. You picked up a bottle of Angel's Envy. Hopefully you'll pick up a bottle of True Story, which I will sign for you before you leave.
Nice.
So I just want to say thank you. We're grateful. We're blessed. I look forward to talking with you guys some more. I'll be around to talk. Enjoy the rest of your time. There's some great brands in there. Enjoy those, and we'll see you soon. Pull up a chair. Thank you.
Let us know what you guys thought about the death investigations that Wes is now part of.
So did you ever think a distiller would be what do I call it?
He's
not a mortician.
Coroner.
Coroner.
He's not a coroner, though. But he was
a death
aviation,
death detective,
fireman, and a death detective.
Yeah.
So anyway, let us know.
Who would have thought?
Isn't that crazy?
What did you think about what do you have to say? Put that in the comments, because we like reading those. And it also helps the algorithm for YouTube. So let us know what you think.
So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.
Yep.
Anyway, till next time. See you guys.
Bye-bye.